Today I'd like to share my chat with Elisha Parker. Elisha is part of the Trail to Triumph team, raising funds for mesothelioma and Heart of Australia. The run is being held on the 18th, 19th and 20th of October. Some very brave, fit people are running from Moranbah to Mackay over those 3 days, and others like me are taking part in the virtual run at the same time over 25 kilometres. To donate, head to trailtotriumph.com/ultramarathon. Elisha, thank you so much for joining me today. And we're going to talk about Trail to Triumph and this ultra marathon run, which is astonishing. But first of all, I want to chat about what it's raising funds for. So what is meso?
Well, Kelly, mesothelioma is a very cruel, incurable, cancerous condition that people can develop that have been exposed to asbestos. So many people have been exposed to asbestos, and the risk is very small of developing mesothelioma because there's a full range of asbestos-related diseases, as you've no doubt discovered. But mesothelioma, unfortunately, only needs a very small exposure. So often we see people with mesothelioma, maybe say the wives or partners of somebody who's worked with the asbestos product in their workplace, and they have developed it from, say, washing their clothes. So it only needs a much smaller exposure than some of the other conditions that are in fact benign. So that's a sad part of the story. But mesothelioma usually comes with a diagnosis, and then after that, there's only a life expectancy of about 6 to 18 months on average. And in Australia at the moment, there's about 800 people a year dying from mesothelioma. So that gives you a bit of a overview of the condition and how terrible it really is.
Yeah. So, Elisha, you can get it from, like you mentioned about getting it from washing the clothes that someone has been wearing as well, but from pipes in dams and all sorts of things that people, even on rural properties, probably don't even think about.
Yeah, that's right, Kelly. So there's, well-known industries where asbestos was so widely prevalent, such as building industry. Of course, we all think of fibro, and that's what comes to mind when you think of an asbestos disease. And in fact, we get people come to us with mesothelioma who say, I just don't think I've ever had any asbestos exposure. I don't know how this has happened. That by going through their history and their workplaces and where they've lived, it is almost always becomes evident to us as to where the exposure could have occurred, and then you investigate that, and that's when you find out where the exposure really happened. But definitely in rural settings, it's not something you'd think of as much. I mean, there's a lot of fibro in homesteads and quarters and things like that. Meat houses is another place you find fibro being a wet area, but things like dam flue pipes, as I mentioned, yes, and in farming areas where they have like cane or vegetables, nuts, rice farming, things like that you'll also find asbestos cement pipes and other rural settings. So yes, it still is in rural areas, but we just don't see it at the forefront as much as some industries that come to mind when you think of asbestos-related diseases.
Well, I'd never thought of it in that regard until you had mentioned it to me. So why is it so important to raise money for meso?
Well, as I mentioned before, mesothelioma is incurable. And when I first started working in this area 22 years ago, there wasn't even a chemotherapy drug that was suitable for mesothelioma. There was literally the case that people would get a diagnosis and be told there's nothing we can actually do for you. A few years later, after I started in the area, a drug was developed for mesothelioma, and so chemotherapy was the treatment that existed for some time until immunotherapy has since replaced that, and immunotherapy is now being used for a number of malignant conditions, but in particular mesothelioma has been some good success with immunotherapy. So the immunotherapy can help people with easing their symptoms. Some people who are lucky, it can help with reducing the tumour or steadying the growth of the tumour. Obviously, for some people, it doesn't work, unfortunately, but it's only a treatment that helps in terms of the severity of symptoms and may prolong life expectancy a little while. but it's not a cure. So there's still more work to be done to try and help those 800 lives that are lost every year. And I was at a conference earlier this year in Melbourne, and they were talking about advances in immunotherapy and a new drug that's been found in mice trials that has shown significant hope of being really, really effective with mesothelioma. So the work that Trial to Triumph is doing and Matt Britton and his team are doing to help raise funds to go towards research is so valuable for that type of investment into what else can be done and what can make a patient's life better when being diagnosed with this condition.
And Elisha, where does Heart of Australia come in?
So Heart of Australia is a wonderful organisation that you only know too well, and so do I, living in central Queensland, and how hard it is to get specialist medical care in regional areas, and even just to get a simple CT scan, you're often looking at a sort of a 6-hour drive or more just to access a CT scan. So Heart of Australia has been in areas in central Queensland where I've lived for years, and yourself, and doing great work in the cardiac space and in other medical specialties. And in recent years, Heart of Australia developed their Heart 5 truck, which has the world's first battery-operated CT scan that they developed with Philips. And it means they can offer a CT scan in Emerald or Ruby Vale or Collinsville, anywhere where Heart 5 truck can go. In fact, they've even barged Heart 5 around the edge of the top of Queensland to get to Weipa. So it's amazing where that truck can go and what it can do. And it's bringing CT scanning and screening into regional and bush areas. So Heart of Australia runs a retired miners screening program, which means now that retired miners in these areas have access to the CT scanner and can get screened to see whether they've had any impact from their dust exposure in their past mining employment. So the fantastic thing about that is people are able to know if they have any signs of a mild disease, in which case they can start regularly screening or look at preventatives that need to happen, such as keeping away from exposure to dust that may make their condition worse. And even more importantly, picking up people who may unfortunately have lung cancer. And we know the statistics from Heart of Australia. They see this regularly, unfortunately, people coming in that truck and not having a clue that they have lung cancer. And thank goodness they went to the truck that day. They picked up and they can start investigating rapidly what they can do and get some treatment. And lung cancer, when it's caught early, and depends on person to person, but there are the opportunities for surgical resection of parts of the lung or treatment that can save a person's life. So what Heart of Australia is doing is fantastic for everyone in regional areas, and now running this screening program. And as they announced recently, they're now doing the lung cancer screening program nationally in the coming years. It's terrific to see, hopefully, that number of people passing away from lung cancer to reduce in the future.
Elisha, you also mentioned that you have an interest in silicosis. So what's that?
Yeah, so for many years, we've all known about the dangers of asbestos and fibro, as we just talked about before. And also many people are aware of the risk of silicosis, particularly from stone and the stonemason industry, bench tops. That's all been on the news and in the media recently. You've even seen the ban of engineered stone bench tops in states of Australia. So people are very familiar with that, but what people may not be so familiar with is that silica dust is in many, many materials, common household bricks and blocks, cement powder and concrete, ceramic tiles, and in rock and coal in the mining industry. So not only do we deal with a lot of people who are diagnosed with mesothelioma and other asbestos-related conditions, but people who are developing all types of silica-related diseases, and that actually includes emphysema. So people in the last few years have been getting diagnosed with emphysema who have been lifelong non-smokers but have worked in an industry where they've had, huge exposures to silica dust, such as the mining industry. So it's now medically accepted, and has been for some time now, that silica dust is a cause of emphysema, COPD, and a range of dust-related conditions, as well as lung cancer. So the screening program that Heart of Australia is doing and screening the retired miners is definitely, looking at other dust-related diseases they could have from their silica exposure, not just including lung cancer.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. I actually caught up with Rolf Gomes the other day, who's the founder of Heart of Australia, so I'll pop that interview up in the next little bit, but he's such an interesting man and very courageous and generous. Let's talk about this run now and Matt and how it came about.
Sure. So I actually had the pleasure of meeting Matt recently at the Heart of Australia Gala Ball in Brisbane, which was great. So Matt founded Trial to Triumph in memory and honour of his father, Tony Britton, who passed away 10 years ago this year. And Tony had mesothelioma, unfortunately, from his exposure to asbestos. So Matt has channeled some really passionate energy into the organisation that he founded in raising awareness for people about what mesothelioma is and asbestos exposure and how it can be caused, and also to raise funds to support research into asbestos-related diseases, including mesothelioma. So they've raised tons of money over the last 10 years, and they're doing some great things. I see recently they were talking about they've sponsored now or developed a Tony Britton Memorial PhD scholarship, which is supporting a doctor at the Flinders University into doing research into improved outcomes and treatment for mesothelioma patients. So it's wonderful what they're doing. And sadly, Matt lost his dad to this terrible condition, but he is doing a great job at hopefully preventing other people from developing it or having a better disease experience than what his dad did. So they do a lot of things throughout the year, but one of them is the Trail to Triumph run, which you just mentioned, and coming up just next weekend.
So, Elisha, you messaged me a little while ago and roped me into it, but I'm not taking on the 250 Ks from Mooroombah.
Neither am I.
So it starts on the 18th, I think. Is that right?
Yes, next Friday. I have full admiration for those ultra runners doing 250 kilometres over 3 days. I can't imagine the pain and the mental toughness to get through that. So I'm not doing that either, Kelly. That's beyond my abilities. But as you know, I'm doing the virtual run, and so are you. So we'll do our best efforts to run as far as we can on each of those 3 days, the same as the ultra runners next weekend.
Yeah. So how do people support and donate?
So the Trail to Triumph website is easy to find, and of course they're on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram, and you can jump on the page and donate to the group through there to support the ultra runners. And then there are a number of people undertaking the virtual run as well. So you may see it popping up on Facebook, people that are giving it a go, and they can follow that as well. But I'd recommend going to the website or one of their social media pages, and you can easily find a way to donate towards their research efforts for mesothelioma.
Okay. Thanks, Elisha. Hopefully lots of people will donate and get some money raised for such worthy organisations that help so many people. So thank you, Elisha. And good luck.
Thanks,
with your running.
Yes, good luck to you next weekend. I'll check in and see how you're going.
And I'll check in with you. Thanks, Elisha.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you for watching and listening to my interview. If you'd like to hear more inspiring stories, subscribe to my YouTube channel or my podcast and follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Life Journey TV.